Well, hello, boys and girls. How are you? Are you having a nice day? I hope so. I'm sure you are. This is Mr. Broussard, of course, and we are going to do some science. Okay, today we're going to finish a lesson that we started last time. So last time we made a list. We identified a lot of ocean features, right? Features in the ocean and features on land. So we identified them, we described them. And the second part of the target, remember, was to figure out how some of these things were formed. Because we are working towards getting us ready to analyze and study and being able to be proficient at using a map, right? So let's go ahead and look at the learning target real quickly so that we know exactly where we're going to learn and explore today. So I can identify features on the crust of planet Earth. We already did that. And the second part is explain how they form, okay? So how they formed in the past and how they continue to form, because believe it or not, features continue to form on planet Earth. Now, all of the continents and the oceans are on which layer of our planet? Do you remember? Which one is the top layer where we're all standing, where the oceans are, where the mountains are, all land, all the continents, the islands? You remember? What is that layer? That's right, that is the crust. And we have heard that word before, right? To refer to the bread crust, the outside of the bread. Some people like the bread crust and some people don't. I personally don't. I like the gooey stuff inside. But bread crust, we also heard this word when we are talking about pie, right? The pie crust. So both of those sound yummy, but we are not mentioning them because they're delicious. We're mentioning them because they're the crust. They are on the outside of the bread. They are on the outside of the pie filling, right? And the crust is on the outer part of our planet Earth. So we made a list. Oh man, the lights went off, but just bear with me. I'll get up in just a few minutes. We made a list of features on the crust of the Earth. Some of them were in the ocean and some of them were on the dry part, on land, right? But we want to know how, specifically today, we're going to concentrate on the mountains and volcanoes. How do they form, okay? It's very important that we know this because when we see the maps, we're going to see some patterns. When we examine the maps, we will see some patterns as far as where the mountains are and where the volcanoes are, okay? So I would like to ask you to think about, maybe something that you have heard or you have seen it on some movie. How do you think, or you can just guess or make an inference based on what you know about mountains. So how do mountains form? Like the Himalayas or the Rocky Mountains or the Appalachian Mountains or the Andes in South America. How did mountains form? What do you think? Why don't you take a few minutes and discuss with your classmates, how do you think that mountains were formed? Okay? So let's see what we know right now about how mountains form, and then we will go into the actual reality of how they form. So take a few minutes to discuss with your friends, with your classmates, how do mountains form? I wish that I was there to have heard all of those great discussions about how mountains form. You remember that lesson that we did about tectonic plates? How the plates are on everything, like the mountains and the oceans, everything is on top of the plates, and these plates are part of the crust. So they're not actual dishes, but they're just huge pieces of crust that are constantly moving. Let's go over that a little bit. So the continents and the oceans are on top of these plates, or these huge pieces of crust, really. So you can see over here, this is the African plate, and the African continent, the continent of Africa, is on top of that one, and part of the Atlantic Ocean. And over here is the South American plate, and the continent of South America is on top. You see it? And over here, this is North America, right? And the Pacific plate is here. So the ocean is over here, the Pacific Ocean, and North America is on top of this one. So you see how they connect like a big puzzle, right? And are those plates moving, or are they static, or are they just there, never moving? Do you remember? They are moving. Yes, slowly, but they are moving. So you remember that sometimes they move toward each other, right? And sometimes they move away from each other, or sometimes they just slide past each other. So I just wanted to review that super quickly, because when you watch the video, I wanted your knowledge to be fresh in your head, okay? Because the mountains have something to do with these plates. So let's look at the link that I want you to click so that you can watch that video. It explains it beautifully, okay? So it is titled, How Do Mountains Form Video. So either you or your teacher will click on that, okay? And as you watch the video, I want you to take a few notes, but you definitely need to know by the end how mountains form. So you need to be able to explain to your teacher, to your classmates, how mountains form. So make sure that if you don't get it the first time, you rewind it and you watch it again until you understand perfectly how mountains form. Got it? So watch the video and be able to explain how mountains form. Okay, so now that you've watched the video, how do mountains form? Now take a few minutes, and I would like a lot of you to share with your classmates, how do mountains form? Make sure that you use those scientific words that you heard. Make sure to use the word tectonic plates, okay? And movement and convergence. So the words that you heard in the video, please use it to explain how mountains form. So now that we know how mountains form, let's look at volcanoes, okay? How do volcanoes form? This time, though, we are going to read an article from NASA. It's made for kids, and they explain very nicely how volcanoes form, okay? So let me show you the link that I want you to click on. So it is, What is a Volcano? NASA Space Plays NASA Science for Kids. Click on that. It looks like this. Okay? So click on it, and also be able to, after you read it, you need to be able to explain how volcanoes form. So now it is time to explain how volcanoes form. And what is that thing that mountain formation and volcano formation have in common? Do you notice? What do they have in common? That's right. We keep going back to those tectonic plates. Those plates are responsible for a lot on the surface of our planet. So now that you know a lot about how mountains form and how volcanoes form, where do you think that you would find the most volcanoes and the most mountains in relation to the tectonic plates? Where you find them? Will you find them in the middle of the plate, or you find them where the two plates come together? What do you think? And not just say in the middle or where the plates come together, but justify your reasoning. Why do you think that they are in the middle, or why do you think that they are where the plates come together? Okay? So justify your reasoning. So we only discussed two landforms, and we could go on and on and on forever, but we don't have the time. So next time we're going to start exploring maps, okay? And the features, the land and ocean features that you find on those maps, and we need to be able to understand them and how to read those maps. So I wanted to make you aware of where you would normally find the volcanoes and the mountains, right? So you would find them where? Where the plates meet. So that's usually where you find the big mountain ranges and a lot of volcanoes. And then the earthquakes are also caused by volcanoes, but the earthquakes, the movement goes all the way into the middle of the plates, okay? So I think we've reached the target today, and you have your explanation. You've already explained how mountains are formed, how volcanoes are formed, and next time we will explore the maps and where we find many of those features on the maps, okay? So thank you. Have a wonderful day. Remember that science is everywhere. Look for it. Bye-bye. See you later.